you're out of market, maybe it's just more convenient to do it through the interweb. It's fair enough. 1029ESPN.com, the stream brought to us by Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. You can also give us a call if you'd like to, 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Ranks Brothers RV phone line. We're going to talk about the game last night. A surprise to me that Toronto wins 3 in a row against Milwaukee, which I certainly did not see coming, especially at home for the Bucks last night. But again, credit their defense, credit Nick Nurse, I guess, for just filling it in the lane against Giannis and taking his chances elsewhere. And that has certainly worked out to their advantage, the Toronto Raptors, as they have a 3-2 series lead heading back to Toronto for Game 6 tomorrow night. We will get into a little bit of prep stuff. We have our sports update from a chick who doesn't know sports in this show today. Looking forward to that with our dear friend Carolyn. We also, in the next hour, are going to get into a little bit of hockey, a little bit of Jim McElwain. We got all kinds of stuff going on. And yes, Aaron Rodgers, not a prolific beer drinker, clearly. There you go. That's the show outlook. Let's see. We started this week, Coulter in a surly mood, angry, bitter, eating wafers. It went to me. I have been was a little bit frustrated in poor and surly spirits with the onset of this cold and not getting very much sleep. And then Tommy today just shooting off email after email of just anger and frustration, really unsolicited. So it's just made the rounds here this week. Who's upset? But at least you and I, Coulter, are feeling good today. Tommy's back there just burning the thing down.
No way. Tommy's feeling good, too. He's got coffee.
Yeah, I am euphoric today.
That is true. It is time, as we do every Friday, for our Florence Coffee Company coffee break. I got myself an iced Americano. Thank you very much. Tommy, what are you working on?
Short triple shot Americano. Well, I was working on it. You just heard me take the final swig.
Okay.
I'm now buzzing.
Very good.
I've only been back at the office for like 16 minutes.
Yeah.
That was an impressive downing of a hot drink by Tommy Evans.
It's like that time, was it your sister that had pizza delivered here during the whole 30?
Yes.
And Tommy ate the whole thing?
Last day of the whole 30. My sister
Yeah, that was
has
fun.
pizza delivered to the studio.
Are you going to stay up late tonight, Ryan? You drinking some coffee to pull an all-nighter?
I pulled an all-nighter last night, which I had no desire or attempt to do. Just one of those things that happened. I actually fell asleep in the second quarter of the Raptors game. Woke up about 9:30, was up till dawn. It was a really, really frustrating night for me last night. But I feel all right. I did watch the rest of the game in the 7 hours that I had in between. So I'm I don't know that I'll be up that late tonight, but I am drinking my Americano to, make this thing last as long as I can. I'm going to go find the end of my rope and just go face down the pillows. That's it. Coulter, what are you drinking? Green tea over there?
Go green tea. You got it.
It's Friday. Can stay up late. Can sleep in. It's a 3-day weekend. Get the Memorial Day started off right. Florence Coffee Company. All right, Coulter, let's talk about this game last night. You and I and 82% of the Twitter people who responded to the poll had the Bucks winning the game last night. They were up, I think, 18-4 to start that thing. And, often big early leagues are fool's gold. And Toronto, give them credit for sort of withstanding that and coming back. But they have been able to absolutely snuff out Giannis Antetokounmpo in this series. And, it's relative, right? It's relative because he's such a great player. He's not going to be completely and totally shut out. But he has really struggled, and the offense has looked just awful for the Milwaukee Bucks through specifically the last 3 games of this series. 24 points last night for Giannis. 9 of 18 from the field, 50%. That's not bad. 4 of 9 from the stripe. That is bad. But more than any of that, his inability to facilitate when he is being double and triple and quadruple teamed has been remarkable. The lack of his ability to score in the mid-range, particularly the 7-8 footer out to the top of the key. He hit a couple of 3-pointers last night, 2 of 3. But he has such length, and that has posed such a problem for people all year long that he's just relied on that. And he's great with the ball in his hands for being as tall as he is. He runs that point guard position regularly through basketball games. Spin moves in the lane, getting to his spots. And Toronto just said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to leave 2-3 guys open, but you are not going in here. And he's turning the ball over. He is not able to find the open man, or is at least not able to find the open man in a time where it becomes an open shot. Here's the thing that I'm noticing is that Giannis, he knows the right play to make, but he sort of fumbles the ball a little bit, and he's always spinning. It seems like there's awkward angles, and the recovery time is there for the Toronto defense to get back out and cover shooters on the outside for the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Bucks have not been able to figure it out offensively. And I think Budenholzer, this is his time, because he has not been able to figure out how to fix this yet. And they obviously have no room for error now because they're down 3-2.
This is a perfect example of having guys that are ready to embrace the moment and how important that is in the playoffs, because I think that the Bucks have had a tremendous season. But of all those guys on the Bucks, they have more pretty good players than anybody in the league. They got one elite player, and then they got a bunch of pretty good players.
Better than average
They
players.
got 8 of them.
Yeah.
Which one of those guys has playoff experience, though? George Hill. That's it.
Right.
Eric Bledsoe's never been in the playoffs. Ersan Ilyasova was in for a minute last year with the 76ers, but that's about it. Mirotic sniffed the playoffs, I guess, for a moment with the Pelicans, but like these guys are not gone to war in the conference finals.
Right.
And
neither is Giannis.
And neither is Giannis. And I don't know, man. I think that it's like we always talk about, no matter how transcendent of a talent you are, a lot of times you have to conquer your demons. You have to conquer. It takes incremental steps to be able to get to that level. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is likely going to be the MVP of the NBA. He was a unanimous first-team All-NBA selection. He's one of the craziest talents we have ever seen.
Yep.
It's easy to forget he's like 24 years old.
Right.
And he's never been here before. And neither has anybody else, including Mike Budenholzer, including everybody on the roster with the exception of maybe George Hill. So in a situation like this, like when you clamp down like they are on Giannis and he kicks, first of all, he's got to kick fluidly. You're right. There's not a lot of fluidity to it. And he's bumbling the ball. But when you do kick, you got to knock down the shots. And I thought last night was stunning. I thought it was one of the most stunning results I've seen. The Bucks were in control. I didn't think that there was any way that a road team won a game in this series. And as soon as it flipped, Toronto just seized control and just never relinquished it and just basically strangled the Bucks. I thought it was an incredibly impressive effort by the Raptors.
It was. And
Fred VanVleet, just out of nowhere.
Wow.
How many threes did he hit? Like 7?
Yeah. He 18 for 43 as a team, by the way. The Raptors shot a lot and made a lot of three-pointers last night, led by VanVleet, who went 7 of 9 from beyond the arc. He was absolutely unconscious. And conversely, the Bucks, they shot 31 three-pointers, which is still a pretty decent number of threes. They only made 10 of them, 32% from beyond the arc for the Milwaukee Bucks. And this is a team in Milwaukee that shot, I think they had the second most three-point attempts of any team in the NBA. And so that is, again, the Giannis effect where he's able to spin in there. But it's one thing when it's just one guy who's coming in to help and the passing lanes are easier to identify and there's less work to actually get the ball out. We're talking about 3 and even 4 guys packing it into the paint and standing there and going, no matter where you go, Giannis, you cannot get to the hole and you only are repulsed and you have to go out. And there's a bunch of guys open, but they just haven't been able to figure out how to make Toronto pay for playing that sort of defense. And it's very surprising to me. But I think that, Antetokounmpo has not looked like the MVP that he's been throughout the year, and even in this postseason up until this point.
It's crazy how last night's result just completely flipped everything about this series on its head. I mean, I think that there was people, us included, that were speculating and starting to extrapolate and starting to analyze the matchup between the Warriors and the Bucks 2 rounds ago. And I think that everybody thought, okay, the Raptors are spunky. They're going to give this team a fight. Kawhi Leonard is certainly back in full force. He is certainly a premier player in the NBA.
Best player in this tournament, in this series.
I mean, truly, all things considered, when Kevin Durant is sitting on the bench crying and LeBron James is sitting at home and Giannis is getting exploited is the wrong word, but Giannis is looking vulnerable for the first time all year. It's pretty hard to say that Kawhi Leonard is not the best player in the world right now, at this exact moment. I mean, if they go to the finals, man, how do you argue it? And I'm not saying just broadly, and I don't think it takes a lot more to overtake LeBron James and Kevin Durant in the broad scope of things. But at this exact moment, I mean, he is rolling. He had one of the great statistical playoff series in the history of the NBA last series, and now he's carrying the Raptors, and they are on the brink of one of the great upsets in the last 10 years in the NBA playoffs.
Well, I don't know about that. I
mean, I guess it's hard. You can't overrate the Bucks like that because you're right. They're new to the scene. They're not a proven team. Budenholzer has had his demons in the playoffs with the Hawks first, and now maybe with the Bucks. But still, man, I maybe not one of the great upsets, but it's one of the Toronto Raptors making the finals. If they make the finals, is an incredibly unlikely story. That is a watershed moment in the history of both their franchise and the NBA.
Certainly would be, but it ain't over yet.
It ain't over yet. I just think that the Raptors seized so much control last night. I mean, to win in Milwaukee. And now you're playing with house money now. Now you just got to win at home. If you don't, then, I mean, if the Bucks steal one, then the pendulum swings back all the way, right? Because then I don't think that the Raptors can win Game 7 in Milwaukee. But they have a distinct chance to close this thing out at home in Toronto.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be Game 6 will be a pressure cooker for sure, and it's going to be a great game. And I think that Milwaukee, I mean, I don't know what they need to do to fix whatever it is they got going on. They started Bledsoe and Brogdon last night instead of Mirotic, and that seemed to work initially, and Bledsoe found his shot a little bit, but they were not able to sustain that. And basically, I mean, the 18-4 run or whatever it was to start the game was great, and then Toronto just kept working back, and it felt like Toronto's game to me as that game progressed. Like the Bucks did have seemingly control of it. They go for such long stretches and not score a bucket. I mean, so long, and they have 2 first-team all-defensive players on that team in Giannis and in Bledsoe. They're a phenomenal defensive team, and that's where they've made their hay, the Bucks. But it also sometimes if you rely on that defense so much that like all we got to do is just keep making stops and the offense will take care of itself. Well, guess what? The offense isn't taking care of itself right now from Milwaukee. It isn't. At some point, you can't go 3, 4, 5 minutes of game time and not score a point because you are putting yourself way behind the 8 ball, and they've done it now a couple games in a row, have not been able to find somebody who could come up and stroke. Middleton, terrible last night offensively. He's been very good in this series, not good last night, and that's truly cost them. And also -8 on made three-pointers. That's a 24-point difference just on made threes. Tough to win those games when you do that.
The other thing that's interesting here is that if the Bucks do emerge from this series and they do go to the NBA Finals, it's sort of like in the NFL when no one knows how to stop this element of, say, the Chiefs offense, or when the Redskins were running the zone read with Robert Griffin. And no one knows how to stop it until someone shows the rest of the league how to stop it, and then everybody just replicates it. The Bucks spread open attack, and I was saying this with Regime Seabrook last Friday when you were gone. The Bucks play this one lineup pretty prevalently where they have Malcolm Brogdon, Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, Giannis Antetokounmpo, all on the floor at once. Who's the fifth in that? Oh, and then they play George Hill. And so they got 4 guys who can play point, but they can also rotate defensively. And so what they do is an incredibly unique style. And then when their main bench guys are Mirotic and Brook Lopez, 2 7-footers that can come off the bench and shoot threes, but still guard in the post, they can play some lineups that give teams fits. Oh. And now, though, the Raptors have put on full display how you deal with the Bucks offensively. And it hasn't been done before yet since this latest iteration of Giannis. And you best believe that if the Bucks make it to the finals, that Steve Kerr is straight ripping that film right off, and they are going to do all sorts of stuff that's almost exactly the same as what the Raptors are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, can the Milwaukee Bucks make three-pointers? And the answer has been largely no. They have not been able to do that. They have not been able to. Sutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Time for a quick break. We got some updates for you. State softball tournament, state track and field, all these things going on right now. We'll get your Prep Extra segment caught up, but you know what's going on next.
Good news. Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass. 3217 Brooks or 549-0608.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Town Pump knows it's a beer and wine type of day. That's why we're happy to offer Modelo 12 packs for $11.99, and we've got your wine covered with our Sutter Home 750 milliliter bottles for a low $3.99. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. University of Montana senior Hannah Feldzer, the UM record holder in the hammer throw, scored a heave of 203 feet 1 inch to take ninth in the NC2A West preliminary at Sacramento State Thursday. That throw punches the Missoula Big Sky Products ticket to the national meet in Eugene, Oregon next month. Long hurdler Olivia Ellis, 1,500-meter specialist Marin Lowry, and high jumper Jane Booth each competed for Montana on Thursday, but none earned national qualifying marks.
Filesler, the first Grizzly to go to the Nationals since 2015. Other than Filesler, Montana State senior Alex Lewis came the closest to advancing. His 24-foot-1 long jump placed him 19th, his top regional meet finish in 3 appearances, but fell just short of that top 12. Javelin thrower Carly Van Heater, who's from Plains, as well as distance runner Kelsey Lasota from Great Falls, and long hurler Jake Schneider, each participated for the Bobcats. None advanced to the Nationals.
Jason Scrumpos, a defensive lineman from the University of Washington, has joined the Montana State football program as a grad transfer, according to Jeff Choate. The Milpitas,
you got it.
California native, redshirted at UW in 2015. He played on the Huskies defensive line from 2016 to 2018. Played in 8 games last year, had a tackle against BYU. He's 6'6", 300 pounds.
There was a E.B. Kearney Award for Sports Radio Show Producer of the Year. Tommy Evans would win every year.
Every year.
Now, what are you trying to butter me up for?
Nothing, Tommy. I was just very happy that you have such great musical acumen. And I also can't wait to tell you in a little while why we're bringing back Comatose Smile.
Whoa! That's unexpected.
Who's this tune by, Tommy?
The War on Drugs, a.k.a. Kurt Vile, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the maybe best songwriter of all time.
Yeah, you and my brother just need to go nerd out together. My brother loves the War on Drugs.
The best band ever. I saw them live, and it changed my entire view on music. Entirely 180. Changed it all.
What else has Kurt Vile been a part of? Is that his name?
That's it. He is his own entity.
Oh, okay, but you said, okay. But you were when you said that, I thought you were implying that there were other bands that he was in or had been a part of.
Well, he's got studio, musicians that play the instruments on stage when they're doing a live show or whatever.
Right. Okay.
You know what the best part about not being on TV right now?
Looking like I look.
I could stretch. Bitch show. We are on YouTube, though. Hi, YouTube.
Stand up and take it easy. Who's the Canadian band? Not Of Montreal. The other one.
Of Monsters and Men?
No, they're from Iceland.
Yeah, they're Icelandic.
I'll come up with it.
Oh,
later.
I know. John Candy.
No. No.
Bring us back, Gus. Where are we broadcasting from?
Missoula. How am I doing?
Great.
Stutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com.
My last sales call of the day, I was walking out.
Yes.
And a mutual colleague and associate of ours, so I'll tell you about later, says, "You going to Kurtz Polaris?" I said, "Dang, that branding is working great."
It is. Yeah. Exactly. We're just sitting here in a side-by-side in a general right now doing the show. Okay. On Twitter, if you're looking for it, at Gus Tutel, at 102.9 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT. It is time now for our Prep Extra segment. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Link your Farmers State Bank debit card to the MyCard app, and you can shut off your debit card right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. And when you locate your card, you can turn it right back on again. There you go. Coulter state softball tournaments began yesterday. You got some updates for us. Let's hear it.
I got them. This will be in no particular order because they're kind of all over the place when I'm reading the various Twitter feeds and things like this. But shout out to all the knights of the keyboard out there providing us with the wonderful results. Florence Carlton knocked out Cutbank 20-8. So Florence Carlton's already scored 33 runs in this tournament. They only played twice. So they're on a mission for their third straight title, no doubt about it. Hamilton beat Polson, big upset. Hamilton beating Polson 2-1. So the Broncs are into the undefeated final game tomorrow. So that's big for
Didn't they already win 2-1? Is that their second 2-1?
That's their second 2-1 victory, yes.
Wow.
So now the Bronx into the undefeated final game. They will play the winner of Frenchtown Belgrade, Clash of Titans in the Class A. So the way the softball tournament works is double elimination. So the Bronx are in the driver's seat right here. They will play the winner of that game and then probably then there'll be a challenge game, and then they'll play again if in fact they lost. But if they were to win, they would eliminate. There's several games to be played tomorrow, but the Hamilton Bronx are the ones that are in the driver's seat right now, being the first team into the undefeated game. Loyola, they're in the midst of a 4-2 battle with Conrad Shoto has a co-op now in softball. Actually did not know that until I'm reading this tweet as we speak. But so Loyola is up as well in the Class A, and let's see, I'll find you some double A here.
Arcade Fire.
Arcade Fire. They're good.
The War on Drugs, at least that particular track, reminded me of Arcade Fire.
Very good.
Tommy, thoughts?
Great band. They weren't as appealing to me live as the War on Drugs. But
when did you see them live? At one of these events that you go to? One of these multi-band, weekends at the Gorge?
Yeah, there are these deals where a bunch of bands play their songs in PAs, and I go sit in front of those PAs and listen to them do that.
That's a lot. That's a lot of bands at a time doing the thing. Huh?
Yeah. They were playing at the same time as MGMT, and I did forego MGMT because they pissed me off so bad the first time I saw them. I will never see them live again.
Really?
But
so does that mean you're not going to play Electric Feel, which is one of my offerings to you on new music for the show?
I will always play that song because there is no middle school dance that should ever happen that does not include Electric Feel. And so because of that, to me, that song has to live on. It has to be around.
I mean, MGMT is doing something a little different now. I mean, the fact that they were, maybe it was just your expectations that were off when you went to their show.
No, dude, those guys are so blazed and non-functioning that it's like sad. They get in front of a crowd, and they played a few songs, and they go, "Does anyone know a song called Electric Feel?" And the crowd, yeah! And they go, "Cool, we don't have to play it then." Boo. Who knows a song called Kids? Yeah! Cool, we don't have to play that song either. And they weren't kidding. They didn't play their two biggest hits.
That's amazing.
I want to shin kick them if I ever come across it.
Some state track results. Well, I'm trying to track down these AA softball results. I don't really know why I'm having a hard time, but all sorts of crazy stuff going on up in Kalispell today. Julius Mims flirted with 7 feet in the high jump today.
Wow.
Ended up getting in at 6'10". That's his PR.
Elias DeWaters, I think 22.5.
22.5, which is a beast long jump. He's Elias DeWaters, future Grizz running back, is a state champion in the long jump, and he will be a favorite in the triple. And Delaney Bond, my goodness, this girl is just outstanding. She shatters the all-class long jump record for girls. She goes 19 4 3/4, breaks the all-class mark by more than 4.5 inches. That record has stood since 1979. Shatters it. Couple other outstanding.
Since 1979.
1979, 40 years.
Wow.
The couple other, and Ashley McElmurray, Lauren Hagen, by the way, from Missoula Sentinel, they went 2 and 3. So, I mean, not bad when you get second and third when your girl breaks a 40-year-old record. I think you can be pretty happy about that. Probably the race of the day up in Kalispell, the girls 1600, Tiana Vladic from Billings Senior she was the Midland Roundtable Athlete of the Year as the top female athlete from Billings. I'm not sure where she's going to school, but I guarantee she has high major offers. She is one of the most outstanding distance runners in the state of Montana and in the Northwest region. She's had the top times in the 1600 and the 3200 all year. And out of nowhere, Tara Traum from Bozeman out-sprints her down the stretch in the 1600 meters and wins the 1600.
Wow.
And Vladic, it's actually a sort of sad ending because Vladic just collapsed at the end of the race in a puddle of tears because I don't think she's lost a race in 2 years.
Never lost, yeah.
And what a final kick by Tara Traum. So very impressive there.
What was the time?
4:55.
Yes.
I mean, that's like 10 to 12 seconds faster than most of the top times in the state this year. And it's raining up in Kalispell right now, too. This is not like nice weather conditions. This is a typical Montana track meet where these kids are just tearing it up, even though
just going hard.
Yeah. Lakima Williams from Billings West threw the shot 42-3, which is just an enormous throw for a girl. Ben Perrin, second straight win in the 2-mile. He just jogged to the finish. Ian Curtis from Missoula Hellgate got second, so congratulations to the local product. And we will continue to have updates for you from the AA/B meet up there in Kalispell. I'm going to probably go up there tomorrow and check it out a little bit as well. So, judging by the fact that the Missoula Sentinel boys, they placed in the 4x100 meter relay, and they already have the state championship from Elias DeWaters, and they got a lot of their point scorers coming tomorrow with the finals for the 100 meters and the 200 meters with Jaden Foster. Rylan Ort will compete against Evan Todd and a field of other people, but those are the top two guys in the javelin. And so Missoula Sentinel looks like they're in good shape day one, and they should have a chance to have a landslide of points in day two.
Very good. Thank you, Coulter. It's Tutel Nuanez. It's your Prep Extra segment brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. It's time to get into one of our favorite segments around here. Sports update from a chick who doesn't know about sports. Carolyn, bring the heat next.
Montana's first and only indoor urban axe throwing facility is open and ready for you to get your axe down here. Lumberjacks Throwing Company, located kitty corner to Draftworks Brewing, is the perfect spot for dates, team building, bachelor parties, or just to blow off some steam after work. Their axe coaches are here to teach you the safety and technique of axe throwing and to get you sticking the axe in no time. Check them out on Facebook or at lumberjacksthrowingcompany.com to book your experience today. Get your axe down here.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings and Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey folks, the best season of the year is upon us. That's right, it's tax return season, and there's one place to have the most fun and make that refund check stretch further than anywhere else, Selway Armory. Selway Armory has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories of anywhere around, and they have the expertise to go with it. It's not everywhere that you can shop local and save money, but Selway Armory will meet or beat any box store price, and your money stays in Montana. It's tax return time, so get more bang for your buck at Selway Armory. Visit online at selwayarmory.com.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
I got places to be, important people to see. I got a life of my own, with a future known. But you know it's something that can't be when you roam on your own 2 feet.
10-1, this isn't John Mayer. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You want to listen to the show? You're out of market. Maybe it's just easier on your phone, computer, etc. 1029ESPN.com there. You can listen to the stream. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. Websites, 1029ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula, SkylineSportsMT.com.
I do not have a name for this athlete, but Richie Melby of MontanaSports.com just tweeted a photo of an athlete from Flathead. I don't know who it is, but who lost his shoe about 50 meters into the 800 and ran the rest of the race.
Finished it.
Finished it. 1 3/4 laps with one shoe on.
Huh.
You have to be tough to do that.
Lower back problem, seems to me.
Indeed.
Did he win?
He did not win. Nope, he did not win.
That is maybe not that big a surprise. Kind of need the shoes to do the thing. Hey, we implemented this about a month ago because Carolyn said, hey, I don't know sports. Let me do a sports update. It's going to be called The Chick Who Doesn't Know Sports, does a sports update or something along those lines. Have we finalized the language on this?
A sports update from a chick who does not follow sports.
Follow?
Yes.
Or no.
Follow. Because she does know. I mean, Carolyn was a Division I athlete.
Yes.
I mean, she played Division I tennis. So she knows sports, she just doesn't follow them.
Where'd she play tennis?
Northern Arizona.
NAU. Oh, that's
NAU,
right. She went to
Flagstaff.
Flagstaff. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. She knows it. She doesn't follow it because she follows Sunset Strip Boulevard or whatever it is on Netflix.
Yep. But she does follow Dennis Rodman robbing yoga stores. That has been one of the funniest parts of this segment. It's not funny because I actually feel bad for Dennis Rodman. He obviously has some issues going on. But
Are you just coming around? You just the visit to North Korea wasn't enough. You had to rob a yoga store before you're like, you know what? I actually start to feel bad for this guy.
The hair, the wedding dresses.
I mean,
I joke a little bit, but I do think Dennis Rodman is probably actually mentally ill. But I also think that we just need more characters in the world like Dennis Rodman, because when Dennis Rodman was in his prime,
greatest show ever.
Phenomenal. One update for you. Billings Senior up 5-1 in the bottom of the 6th over Great Falls High, the defending Class AA champions.
19-1 on the season.
I think Great Falls High has lost once in 2 years.
Okay.
And so Billings Senior got the Bison on the ropes.
Here we go.
A sports update from a chick who does not follow sports.
Thank you.
Hello, boys and girls. It is time once again for, well, the best segment that we have on this entire radio station. It's a sports update from a chick who doesn't know about sports, our dear friend Carolyn. Hello, Carolyn.
Hello, how are you? Welcome
Dandy.
home.
Yeah, thank you. That was a long, tedious journey, very, very tough life going on vacation to, the tropics.
Yeah, for
but
2
I've made
weeks.
it home.
I know. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, and I'm very interested to know what I've missed. I missed a lot of things, and I know that you know a lot of things about sports. So fill me in.
Well, I want to talk for a minute about Drake.
Yeah.
I
Let's talk about Drake.
cannot even believe how he's acting at these basketball games. Listen, I was born in Toronto, so I'm a fellow Canadian.
You were born in Toronto?
I was, in 1975.
Wow,
Yes.
so much to know here. Okay.
So Drake and I are practically related.
Right.
And I would never act like that. Even at my kids' basketball game, I wouldn't act like that.
Is it unbecoming of a rapper, or is it just unbecoming of a person?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, yeah, he's supposed to be this tough guy, and then he's out there like skipping around trying to shoot baskets with and not making them. By
Do
the
you
way.
think it's undercutting his, street cred?
100%.
Which was already maybe waning, given the fact that he is, no offense, from Toronto.
Yeah, those chunky Nick sweaters that he wears
Yee.
doesn't help his
Mhm.
street cred either. But massaging the coach during the game, screaming during free throws, it just screams bad sportsmanship, and I just don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective.
Mhm.
Very good.
He better sit down at the next game. That's all I can say.
Well, Coach Budenholzer from Milwaukee has said that very thing.
Yes. So it would be really sweet if he got thrown out of a game.
Wouldn't that be
That would be
nice?
hilarious.
That would be a real a social media gem.
Oh
that
my
would be.
God. Yeah, I can imagine the memes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's
Thing number one.
Thing number one.
Yeah,
Thing
Drake,
number two.
Sit down.
This is actually all about basketball today.
Good.
Steph Curry's wife, Aisha,
Okay.
their kid got body shamed on social media. Their
How old is their child?
10-month-old got body shamed. because he weighs 30 pounds.
I mean, that is quite a lot. Is he 30 pounds?
That's what she said. She said he's 30 pounds, and some people told her she should put him on a diet.
Jeez. How about
So that's where we are today.
body shaming infants?
Body shaming.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's probably not even walking. Like he can't burn calories. Not that you want your 1-year-old to burn calories, but it's like,
Clearly.
he's just putting on weight. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, all little kids are supposed to be rotund little Michelin people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't even believe people would have the nerve to say something about that.
Nothing surprises me
True.
on the internet.
True. Our world is going to hell.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
You can.
Okay. And finally,
Okay.
some good news for some people, maybe.
Yes.
Bad news for others. Kendall Jenner and Ben Simmons have broken up.
Oh, boy.
Days after she said she could see herself marrying him.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I was vaguely aware at one point, like a long time ago, it seems like. How long have they been dating?
Years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That they had like been seen together, or one of these sorts of reports out there in the glamour world.
Right.
I had not even registered that this was an ongoing thing. I don't know anything about.
I think it was kind of on the down low.
Okay.
And then she finally came out about it. And I feel like if you say you're going to marry someone, that's just a kiss of death. Like, you shouldn't say that publicly.
Zip that one up.
Yeah, keep that to yourself.
Right.
I would.
You think she was applying the heat? Like, hey, we've been together a while. What's going on here?
Maybe.
I'm going to go public with this. And he was like,
He's like, no. I'm going to give some advice to the Kardashians.
Good.
And I hope they take it.
Yes.
I'd like them to just stay away from the NBA players. Maybe find a nice dentist or someone just
I could use a
normal.
good dentist.
And just, chill out. Doesn't have to be an NBA player.
Could it be another professional athlete, or you just want him to find an up and coming plumber in your area
I think
and
a plumber
take
would
them
be
out
great.
to dinner?
I think I think they have not had luck in the NBA.
Right.
Or the Kardashians could hold their own NBA draft. You see where I'm going? Select and trade and do a whole thing.
Well, I mean, that pretty much is what's happened, right?
Right. But let's make it official.
Yeah.
Put it on E.
Make it a reality show, right?
God,
Sure.
I'm a genius.
Is Kylie Jenner a Kardashian?
Yes. Well, she's a half sibling to the Kardashians.
She is.
She's the daughter of Kris Jenner, who is really the mastermind of all of this. So I guess she's got some.
Who's Kris? Is Kris a woman?
Kris Jenner is all of their mother.
Kris is the
the mother.
Okay.
So Kris was married to Robert Kardashian, if you remember from the OJ trial.
I'm sorry, because I have many Chris's in my family, and they're all men. And so when you said there, I thought initially that perhaps this was the brother of Bruce, or formerly Bruce.
No,
but
Bruce
Kris
is
a woman, and then they were married
right,
for a while.
Right.
Okay.
They were married for a long time. And then, Bruce had some stuff to work out, and now Bruce is Caitlyn and living her best life in Malibu.
Okay. And a half sibling, Kylie Jenner.
Kylie and Kendall are sisters.
Oh.
They are half siblings to
Who's
Kim,
dating
Courtney,
Ben, or what?
Kendall.
Is she the one with all the makeup line
No,
and
that's
all that?
Kylie.
Oh.
Kendall's a supermodel.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm completely enlightened.
I am disgusted that I know this information.
Oh, stop.
So,
just about everybody knows this information.
Yes, this is true.
I'm the dope who's been between the tropics with no idea, no connectivity.
Yeah, but that was only 2 weeks. These Kardashians have taken over our lives and the NBA's lives for like 10 years.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah. So.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
We're a month into this. We haven't actually figured out a way to record it together.
No.
We might actually even have Carolyn in the studio next week.
We will do We'll do some live ones with her, and it will be fun. She's great at this, and
it's really funny. I'm into it.
She is funny, and wanting the Kardashians to have an NBA player draft is an excellent thought. Staying on the pop culture thing here, and this you'll love this, Coulter. This
Can't
is for
wait.
you. Don't start looking over at my machine trying to steal looks. Okay, Adam Levine,
which is the lead singer of Maroon 5, not to be confused with Adam Lambert.
correct. Which I
You were
still-
confused for a long time
completely.
about this.
There's another one.
There is?
That's not a
Another
musician.
one?
There's
What?
like an Adam. I don't know.
I don't either.
Adam Levine, not Adam Lambert. Adam Levine of Maroon 5 of Super Bowl halftime fame, but Coulter didn't watch it because he only is.
No, I actually did watch it, and I thought it was great, and you guys then poo-pooed it and thought it was terrible.
Tommy thought it was terrible. I thought it was average. So, yes, that Adam Lambert. Have you heard that?
Adam Levine.
Levine. It is Levine. He's leaving The Voice, Coulter. Have you heard this?
He is.
He's leaving The Voice.
Because he doesn't have a quality singing voice.
No. Stop.
I don't know about
this
that.
Is just
pretty good.
This is the TV show, The
No
Voice.
Comatose Smile.
He's been on there, but this is so. That's
right,
a fact.
Coulter. That is true.
That's a fact. Will come him leaving The Voice. Now I've seen probably grand total in my life about 10 minutes of The Voice. Okay, but I'm of course aware of this show, and is it Blake Shelton?
Blake Shelton
And Gwen Stefani has been on it.
Christina Aguilera, yeah.
Alicia Keys, right? Who's the
Katy Perry, Lionel Richie.
No.
Yeah, he's on there, right? Or no, wait, no.
That's a
he's on
different
American
show.
Idol.
Yeah,
I'm getting
yeah.
confused.
Yeah. Miley Cyrus, I think, was on The Voice, at least as a guest at some point. Anyway, do you know how many seasons Adam Levine has been on The Voice? Seasons?
A lot. 8?
You ready? 16 seasons.
Man. Why is he leaving? I feel like that's like the most easy, free exposure ever. You're on network TV every night or every week.
Let's be honest. The profile of Maroon 5 has skyrocketed explicitly from him being on that show.
For sure.
But I don't know why he's leaving. And it's no fun. I just couldn't believe that The Voice is. Now, it is 16 seasons. I always assume a season is a year, right? Understanding it doesn't go for 52 weeks or whatever. It goes for, 18 weeks or something like that. But could it be that a season happens twice annually? So it's been 8 years, but 16 seasons? Or
right.
would 16
yeah.
seasons be 16 years?
No. There's
It couldn't be going back to 2005, 3, whatever.
Yeah, no way. They haven't been around that long.
No.
They've been around longer than you think, but not that long. I'd say they've been around for like 12 years. Let's look up when their debut album is. I have such funny feelings about Maroon 5 because I think that some of Maroon 5's stuff is like very unique and good, and I think that others is like very sellout and very poppy. Well, I mean, they have a distinct niche for sure.
Well, I mean, no, I got no problem with Maroon 5. It's fine.
I mean, like I thought their debut album was really good.
Listen, I've never listened to a Maroon 5 record.
Yeah, well, they won a Grammy in 2005 for Best New Artist, so they've been around for 14 years. But yeah, no, it's got to be The Voice has to be twice a year.
Twice a year.
I mean, I feel like it's never not on. It has never not been on for like a decade. So
16 couldn't be 16 years. Who's taking his space? They said somebody's coming in to take his chair. Oh, Carson Daly hosts that show? No. Does he?
I don't know, man. There's like America's Got Talent and American Idol and The Voice.
Well, I'm reading the thing. It says, yeah, Carson Daly's.
Dude, Carson Daly shows up at everything. Him and John Legend, they do nothing, but they show up at everything. Of course, Carson Daly hosts the show.
How could you equate Carson Daly and John Legend?
How can you not? How can you not? Okay? He's had, one song? And it's only popular because he's ripping off John Lennon, so people like typo it, and then they get his song, and they go, what's this piano ballad about? Oh, funny that the guy named John Legend did a piano ballad and got famous, who sounds like John Lennon, who's known for a piano ballad. And then he just shows up at all these things. He's at all the music awards. He's at all the different showcases. He's at random dance things, all this stuff. And then Carson Daly shows up. What do these people do besides show up to events? Nothing.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up.
When you're thirsty, Town Pump has your back. Stop in today for Miller and Coors 18-pack cans for $16.99. We've also got 5-hour energy shots, 2 for $5. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
It's a crisp fall morning. Time for your daily pumpkin soy latte. As you wait for your coffee, you get a buzz. No, it's not your boss wanting extra whipped cream, but your ADT video doorbell. It's a package. Your new latte machine. No more $5 PSLs. Barista service. Brought to you by ADT. Designing and installing a smart home just for you. Backed by best-in-class 24/7 protection. Learn more at ADT.com. ADT. Real protection. License information available at ADT.com.
It happens. You're positive you put your bank card back in your wallet, but the next time you need it, it's missing. Avoid the panic and take control with the MyCard app and debit card from Farmers State Bank. Our app lets you control your debit card and securely turn it off right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. MyCard is available only at Farmers State Bank. Ask about it at any of our 9 locations or learn more at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, member FDIC.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hi, how are you? Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for being with us. Let's talk a little bit of sports news. University of Montana senior Hannah Filzer, the UM record holder, the hammer throw, scored a heave of 203 feet 1 inch to take 9th at the NC2A West preliminary at Sacramento State Thursday. That throw punches her ticket to the national meet in Eugene, Oregon next month. Long hurdler Olivia Ellis, 1,500 meter specialist Marin Lowry, and high jumper Jane Booth each competed for Montana Thursday, but none earned national qualifying marks.
Other than Filzer, Montana State senior Alex Lewis came the closest to advancing. His 24-foot-1 long jump placed him 19th. His top regional finish in 3 regional appearances. Javelin thrower Carly Von Heater, who hails from Plains, distance runner Kelsey Lasota from Great Falls, and long hurdler Drake Schneider each also participated for the Bobcats.
Jason Skrempkos, a defensive lineman from the University of Washington, has joined the Montana State football program. The California native redshirted at UW in 2015 and played on the Huskies defensive line from 2016 to 2018. A 6'6", 300-pound defensive tackle, Skrempkos played in 8 games, making 1 tackle against BYU last season. He was Max Prep's All-Northern California selection as a senior at Milpitas Heights in 2014.
And finally, the Toronto Raptors took Game 5 in Milwaukee to take a 3-2 lead over the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. John Legend is one of only 15 people ever, and the only African American ever, to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony.
For just showing up.
Yeah, no talent there.
He won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. I don't know how you hate on that, Tommy.
I'm trying to figure out for what, though. What did he do?
Look, because
first of all, you got to realize
or know it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
First of all, you got to realize that John Legend has written so many songs for other artists. Like Lauryn Hill owes so much of her career to John Legend. It is his collaboration and his piano playing and his songwriting. I mean, I don't know, man. John Legend is a legend. He's pretty good, man. He's been in almost 20 movies.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, a lightning quick first hour, you can check it out on the podcast. The podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes. It's also available on Spotify. And it is there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. If you want to call, we'll be happy to take your calls. Wondering what you're up to for this Memorial Day weekend. Are you doing anything? 329-1899, the phone number, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line.
I've been in a movie, man. Where's my, fancy movie prop golden
You've
shiny
been in a movie?
thing? Yeah.
Where? How? What?
Yeah, it was sweet. I got to live for 2 weeks in this old Volkswagen van in the dead of winter, and there was no heat in it. It's the most sick I've ever been in my life as a result of that short film.
I took my family also in winter to go visit Bannock.
Gosh.
And ghost towns are extraordinarily cold. Just extraordinarily cold. And we were freezing. The wind's blowing down the streets. We walk in, there's these guys dressed up. There's just like blood and guts everywhere, and the guy with a shotgun and the whole thing. What the heck is going on? They're using Bannock as a site to shoot a zombie western.
So it's actually a ghost town. Actually a ghost town. Ghost town.
It's an actual ghost town that they had as a Walking Dead town. I have no idea what the film was. I will say, by observation, it appeared to be fairly low budget. Fairly low budget.
This is absolutely the most off the rails we've ever gone.
When you announce it like that, it just ruins it.
I just love it. I'm loving it.
Off what rails?
I don't know. A couple sports updates for you. Great Falls High. Sarah Conway has hit a 3-run bomb. Tied at 5, top of the 7th. Billings Senior and the number 1 seed Great Falls High at the Class AA softball tournament now tied at 5. So Great Falls High rallies from a 5-1 deficit. Had to think that they would. And Jaden Foster continues his absolutely breakout junior year from Missoula Sentinel. He didn't even run the 400 until the last month of this year. He didn't even run it in a meet, I don't think, until the Western Divisionals, and he has won the state championship in the 400 meters. Sprinted his way to a 48.98, outlasted Trevin Gradney, who's future Grizz cornerback, who was the favorite in the race. So congratulations to Jaden Foster, Missoula Sentinel boys, state champion in the 400, Trevin Gradney, second.
Adam Pac-Man Jones announces his retirement today. Nick Bosa is out with a hamstring injury, and I'm wondering how much of Nick Bosa we're ever just going to see because he's great, but he's oft injured. So this seems to me to be concerning, and I might be concerned. Who took Joey Bosa?
Wait, which Bosa's hurt? Because Joey Bosa is the one that's in the league that's been off injured.
Oh, no, Nick Bosa is injured now.
Okay, he went to the 49ers.
San Francisco, yes. Yeah. Okay, Nick Bosa.
Joey Bosa plays for Chargers.
Pulled his hamstring. Don't know the extent of it. Sounds like it's not the worst. It's a grade 1 hamstring strain. So he will be out for the next few weeks receiving treatment. Anyhow, for what that's worth. The other issue, if we get into some NFL news here, is we found out earlier this week that Aaron Rodgers is a minority owner of the Bucs. He's actually a 1% owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks valuation is up and over $1 billion. Now, I don't know what he bought in for, but $10 million would be 1% of $1 billion. In any case, he's a part owner. And it's, nobody, I don't think that there's a professional sports grouping in terms of a city, or in this case a state, that has more overlap of athletes to support other teams than you get in Wisconsin.
It's an interesting point.
I mean, Bakhtiari and Rogers have had this thing going on for this entire postseason. Yelich is there the other night. Rogers is also at all the Wisconsin University of Wisconsin basketball games, Badgers games. Not all of them, but many of them, especially postseason NC2A stuff. And it just seems to me, I think you get a little bit of it in Pittsburgh with, the four sports and all the same colors and all of that. But I think Wisconsin, man, there's a certain tie there to that group that seems to continue to perpetuate itself. Here's the thing, though.
Why is that, do you think? You come from Scotty roots.
Yeah.
We have a couple other co-workers
in Wisconsin.
And, I mean, the passion is unmatched. I mean, like our boss, she's from Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And her dad writes 10,000-word emails every Monday giving his take on the Green Bay Packers and the Wisconsin Badgers. And they are just epic. But, like, the passion is just crazy.
I would say, I would equate, here's what I think. Wisconsin has, a mid-major city in Milwaukee and has three professional sports that have been in Milwaukee, and then obviously with Green Bay being the third. But Wisconsin as a state is
rural.
It's rural, and it's not on the national stage,
right?
Very much.
It's kind of like if Montana had a big city.
Totally. And I think that
it's cold.
I think that
cold always caters towards loyal sports fans.
I think that Wisconsin, and especially with Green Bay is something very unique in all of sports, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
The size of the town and what it is and that. But I think that Wisconsin gets to be, gets to have national exposure almost exclusively through their sports teams. So I think that, that caters to that. And when you have guys like, Aaron Rodgers, who's a big baseball fan, a big basketball fan, sort of starting all that stuff up, I think it sort of precipitates throughout the rest of the guys, and they want to be on, court side for the Eastern Conference. And who wouldn't want to be? You know what I mean? And I'm sure if you were, if another team, if the Knicks were in this, you might have, Eli Manning or something like that sitting at the game, maybe. But it's different there in Wisconsin. What do you eyes widen about over here?
Kara Conway just hit a walk-off home run for Billings Senior. 3-run bomb. Billings Senior beats Great Falls High 8-5.
Wow. Is that a double elim tournament?
Double elimination. So if Great Falls into the losers bracket,
yeah.
they will likely. I can almost guarantee you that Great Falls and Billings Senior are played for the state championship tomorrow. But that's big time. Walk off home run, flip the bat. See you later.
Here's what I know for sure. Don't get into a beer drinking contest with an NFL offensive lineman,
especially one that lives in Wisconsin.
Just don't ever do it. Like, you want to drink your beer, go ahead, enjoy it. But don't think that you're going heads up against any of these dudes.
I get the whole. I mean, most offensive linemen in the NFL can probably drink themselves some beers.
Yeah,
David Bakhtiari has a phenomenally special talent. I don't care how big you are. If you can straight bottoms up 3 straight 24-ounces like he did last night, that's amazing. I don't care how big you are.
It's pretty good. And I will say that David Bakhtiari is. I mean, first of all, I thought not just winning though. Aaron Rodgers was disappointing in his own right. Like
completely the least surprising thing ever, right?
Overlaid with Bakhtiari, it looks even worse. But even if he was by himself, you'd be like, well, that's pretty sad. That's pretty poor.
Totally predictable, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he doesn't strike you as
who
a
would
big
Aaron
beer
Rodgers
drinker.
beat in a beer drinking contest? Exactly.
Not many.
Yeah, right.
Not many. But you know what was I found somewhat surprising? Less so now that we've talked about it. But Bakhtiari also wins the girlfriend game against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this gal who's been with him now at because they've done this now a handful of times.
Oh, this is the thing.
His girlfriend, I presume it's his girlfriend who's sitting there. Wow.
Gorgeous.
Stunning. I mean, come on. David Bakhtiari, big old offensive lineman. Good work. And Aaron Rodgers with, Danica Patrick. Okay. I don't know. Danica Patrick, she doesn't really move the needle for me. Just like her personality. I don't know. It's not I don't get it. Olivia Munn was much. I thought Olivia Munn was a much better match.
Well, I mean,
don't get yourself in trouble here.
Anybody that can
you stammering.
Anybody that can tolerate Aaron Rodgers is probably the good match.
Out loud.
I mean,
listen to you.
He probably cries twice as much at home as he does during games.
Goodness.
Every time she doesn't fold the sheets right or the socks or something, he's probably just scoffing her off, walking away.
You are absolutely the worst. The worst.
I mean, is there anybody that, with his body language, blames everyone around him more than Aaron Rodgers? Every time they don't convert a third down, he unsnaps the helmet, huffs off the field, looking at everybody like, you guys ruined it for me.
Because they did.
Make a play, bro.
Because they did.
One Super Bowl.
Yeah, make a play. And
If Aaron Rodgers
have never done
if Aaron Rodgers only goes to one Super Bowl, you have to agree with this. If he only makes it to one Super Bowl by the time his career is over, that would be one of the largest disappointments in the history of the NFL.
Huge disappointments.
I mean, can you imagine?
I mean, who also did that and didn't win it, by the way? Danny Marino.
Okay. But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, Dan Marino is phenomenal. Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, when you talk about just playing the position, he's as good as it has ever been.
I was thinking about this yesterday, okay? But this will relate to this. But this is something separate, but this relates. We talk about drafting guys, and we did talk about this to a certain extent. But excuse me. Guys having great drafts and finding guys to fit and do all that stuff is critically important. And there's a skill to it and a preparation, a work of scouting and of consideration and all that goes into it. I get all that. We just take for granted that if you are in the NFL as a coach, you know what you're doing, and all the coaching that is happening is roughly equivalent, and that it's about how good a guy is. And it just ain't true. I'm not sitting here throwing stones necessarily at Mike McCarthy or whatever. What I am doing is saying, when you have all that talent and it isn't coming together, it's not about the guys doing it or not. At least not entirely. And I think that there is a ton of, I won't say poor coaching, but I would say that there's a huge gap between the best coaches at the professional level and the worst coaches at the professional level, who are still great football minds and all of that kind of stuff. But there's just, I mean, look, man, Bill Belichick's just better at this than and his staff than most of the other guys. And it's not even just him. There's plenty of other guys that are great at it and other guys who just aren't great at it.
It's just like business or any sort of organization. And when we're talking about coaching and stuff like that, it's more than just about the fundamentals of the game or the X's and O's of the strategy or any of that stuff. To me, the biggest disease a professional sports team can acquire or that can be afflicted with is dysfunctionality. As soon as you have dysfunctionality or you have a lack of continuity, it makes it all go awry. Look at what we're watching right now with the Los Angeles Lakers. Nobody's on the same page. It's just falling apart. Got all the resources in the world. You're in Hollywood. You got LeBron James. You got Jack Nicholson sitting courtside. Can't figure it out. It's because of dysfunctionality more than anything else. And why are the Spurs so good? Continuity, being on the same page. It's just like in college sports. To me, in college sports, that same quote-unquote disease is complacency. Yeah. As soon as you become complacent. And that's why Alabama is so impressive, because Alabama football, they're never satisfied. We won 5 out of the last 10 national championships. That's not good enough. Like Nick Saban says, I take one day off, and then it is day one, 2 days after the national championship. That is over. I do not even remember what happened.
Yeah.
We're grinding on it. And
sickness.
It's so interesting to take the parallel to the Big Sky Conference, especially in football, because to me, there's been so much said and written and all that about Montana's epic run. When Montana won 12 straight Big Sky Conference championships, that's been praised and given a ton of due credit. But the element that I think is underrated is the continuity element of it, or lack thereof, and how they're able to do it still. I mean, you talk about the greatest coach in school history in Joe Glenn retiring after the national championship. Hands the reins to Mick Dennehy. You go Mick Dennehy, Joe Glenn, Bobby Houck, and you don't miss a beat. You got 4 coaching changes in the span of that 12-year span, and you never miss a beat. You never get complacent. You continue to build and build and build. Everybody's giving you your best shot. You're still rolling. I mean, to me, Montana State had it rolling so much under Rob Ash, and the 2 factors that derailed it was they got a little bit too big for their britches when it comes to recruiting. I was going through the NFL transactions wire the other day, looking at some of the Big Sky guys that got cut. And I was thinking about, there's so many dudes that Montana State, when Rob Ash, his last 3 years, that they recruited, that they almost got, that then got a late FBS offer, that are in the league. Like Chris Odom right now, he's a backup defensive end for the Bills. Somebody that most people listening to this show probably never heard of. But he got an Arkansas State offer the day before signing day, and he goes to Arkansas State, and Montana State has to end up taking Garrett Marino, who was a 4-star guy, but was a complete train wreck, and he gets arrested and blah, 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 blah. And it's just, that's the dominoes that fall.
Right.
Montana State was 10 days away from getting Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert should be the number 1 pick of the draft. I think Rob Ash probably still have a job if Justin Herbert was his quarterback.
Right.
But that was one of the reasons. But the other thing is complacency just snuck in. I mean, they rolled. They went 21-3 in the league, won 3 straight Big Sky titles, and then it kind of hit a wall. And the edge that it takes, like that rebuilding edge, all that kind of stuff, it went away. So I just think that continuity, being on the same page in pro sports, and avoiding complacency in college sports, those are the most important things. And what you're saying, like with the coaching, that's the part about professional coaching. It's so much more than, every guy that is an NBA or NFL head coach, when he's on the board drawing it up, of course he's a superb coach.
Right.
It's about what's your vision, what do you want, and how much are you on the same page as everybody else in your organization.
Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, YouTube television. Check us out, Stu Tell Nuanez YouTube channel. Tommy, what are you doing this weekend?
Well, I'm hanging out with a coworker tonight.
Yeah. All the coworkers.
Yeah,
bud.
except for Ryan.
You're not coming?
Are you going?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I want to go, and I had RSVP'd, but I've come down with this sickness, and I don't want to share it any more than I'm already sharing it by being here with you. And also my kids and our coworker's child, I don't want to pass it on amongst the next generation too. That's miserable. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how I'm going to work this thing. But I was thinking more along the lines of it's a 3-day weekend. It's a Memorial Day weekend. This, to me, is the official launch of summer, is when we get here. Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's summer to me. And so, and I had, big visions for this 3-day weekend, and then realized, none of my family can sleep at night, and we're all sick. So maybe we just lay low. I don't know. So I was hoping to maybe get some inspiration from you fellas, and I'm interested to know, do you have a plan, given that it's a 3-day weekend, Tommy, or are you just going to do, an extra day of what you would do any other weekend?
Well, here's the problem, and this could open up to a bigger conversation, but I'm lost, man. This is the first, weekend at the end of May where we don't have the Sasquatch Music Festival in Washington.
This has been ongoing for years. What happened with that?
I just went bankrupt and went away. There's no more alternative and new band festivals in Washington taking place. So I'm a little lost because traditionally I load up my little miniature camper and go over there and hang out and watch the music and talk with the people and eat the food and do the thing. But now I don't know what to do. Yeah, well, actually, breakfast burritos. I made a mint last year. I made a ton of cash last year selling those breakfast burritos.
Yeah, statute of limitations, hopefully, on that a year ago. So now you got well, I mean, it's illegal. That's what I'm talking.
Selling a breakfast burrito is definitely not illegal, dude.
It's illegal.
You have to have a food.
First of all, it's
certification.
illegal. It's illegal broadly speaking, like OSHA and so forth, and it's also illegal specifically at the Gorge.
Yeah, no. You can't start coming down on me on this. If they were selling breakfast burritos, maybe they would still have a festival, okay? They had to have me show up to feed the people with my stove and my refrigerator full of bacon, okay?
I mean, I'm not arguing you. I'm just saying.
Shredded cheese, man. If you wanted extra sour cream or some chives, look, I'm not even going to charge you. I'll just give them to you.
What's a chive over and against a green onion?
This is a great question. What is a leek over and above a green onion?
Well, it's big. A leek is big. I mean, it's a big green onion.
I think chive is like fancier version of green onion.
I mean, in what respect fancy?
It's
just a fancy word. It's the same. Is it literally the same thing with a different word, or is it a different thing?
Is this one of those like where you're from things? Like
what?
Like depending on where you're from, you might say data versus data.
Yeah, I mean it might be supper and dinner,
creek and crick.
Oh yeah,
John Mayer's good versus bad.
Oh my gosh, Tommy was on an email rampage today with John Mayer.
I wanted to fight him today, Coulter.
Skewered. Okay, so you're doing nothing. What are you doing?
I'm going to the same gathering that Tommy's going to.
Yeah,
and then I am. Probably go up to Kalispell.
You gonna go up to the meet?
Yep. Okay. Watch some track. And
where are you gonna stay?
I'm just gonna come back down.
Oh, you gonna go up for the day and come back?
It doesn't. Okay. I mean, it gets over like 4:30.
Okay.
Starts early, and the 4x400 is scheduled for 4:30, which means it'll probably more happen like 5:30 or 6, because those things are a little bit long.
You want to take some allergy medicine and come over and watch the game 6?
Gosh, I was really hurting the other night. I couldn't even talk.
It was great.
Well, yeah, because you were sleeping.
Out. I've been struggling, man.
I couldn't talk. I broke my nose. Almost gave me a black eye.
Little man gave you a good headbutt right on the bridge of the nose.
I walk in, haven't seen Ryan's kids in months, which when they're young, that's a substantial portion of their lives.
Yep.
Zoe and Alethea both run up. Coulter, give me a hug. It's very sweet, very nice. Made me feel great about myself. I see Kai, and he just looks at me. He runs up to me almost, and he clenches his fists, and just Yokozuna bottom drops right on the ground. Just bam! Sits down, stares at me. So I pick him up, say, "How's it going, buddy?" Just slugs me.
Yeah, he's a physical one, that kid.
I
He
mean,
starts
just
swinging.
clocks me.
Yeah.
Gotta get him into some Muay Thai.
Yeah, maybe so. Okay.
How about Jim McElwain living in a barn? Does he actually live in the barn? I saw the headline.
No, he lives in a barn.
You think when I talked to him for 35 minutes the other day, I would have got to that part of the story, but we didn't.
Well, it's okay. Warren McGuirk is kind of the big donor booster of Central Michigan University. And McGuirk Stadium is, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like he's got naming rights to the state. Washington Grizzly McGuirk Stadium. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Well, McElwain's like, the thing that I, need is I need to live in a place where I can host, big events, talking about boosters, talking about kids, talking about big gatherings that you're going to have when you're a coach. And, of course, you could use, school facilities for that. He's like, I don't know, man. And I don't know where I'm going to – he's like, check – what do you think about – I think I might want to live in a barn. Goes in. He's like, this is it. We got to build this thing out. So McGuirk, I understand that it's his barn, McGuirk's barn, that McElwain and his wife are now living in. And they built out what is, essentially a house inside of a building. if that makes sense. And I don't know the schematics on this, if it's separate in some way or if it's just wide open or whatever. But it's like 6,000 square feet, this barn. And McElwain, from Missoula, Montana to Colorado State to Florida to Central Michigan University, now living in a barn and doing the thing. And I don't know, man. It's Central Michigan went 1-11 last year. Terrible. But prior to that, had been pretty good at the MAC level. I love this, man. I love Jimmy McElwain back up there in the MAC doing his thing.
Yeah, if you missed the ESPN Roundtable last week, Jim McElwain and I had a long conversation all about his roots in Missoula and his playing career at Eastern Washington, his coaching career starting at Eastern Washington, the influences. I mean, he played for Dick Zorns and then coached with and under Mike Kramer, and then coached for Cliff Heisel, and then went with John L. Smith to Louisville, and then that got him hooked up with Nick Saban, and then all of a sudden he's Nick Saban's offensive coordinator. And, I mean, some of the stories he was saying, you know, his first year as the OC in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
He said it's pretty easy to draw up plays when you got Mark Ingram, TJ Yeldon, and Julio Jones.
Yep.
Said Julio Jones is pretty easy to think of stuff to do with, especially when Julio Jones is, you know, a college kid.
The thing is, you don't have to think of anything. Just run down there and throw him the
football. Just throw it anywhere, and he's got it.
Which is basically what they do in Atlanta, sadly.
But then McElwain, he was very candid. You know, he talked about what it's like coaching at the Swamp and the responsibilities and pressure that comes with being the head coach at Florida, and you know, just kind of how that went awry. But one thing he told me was that he's like, I thought it was a great experience. I loved it. I think the SEC is unparalleled. He said, but what I've got going now, this is just more my speed.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that feeling. And he said this in the article. By the way, there's a big write-up on ESPN.com about Jim McElwain now being at Central Michigan. That's where this barn story comes from and so forth. And he says in that article, Florida was not the right fit for me. He's like, there's a lot of people there that I love, that I care about, that, you know, and I want them to be successful, and they will be successful. But at the end of the day, it wasn't the right fit. And usually you don't hear coaches saying that.
Right.
And maybe it's a little easier when you've got your new job and it's all the chapters all the way closed and all that kind of stuff.
Also, Jim McElwain's a lot more candid than most coaches.
Right.
I mean, he's just a great dude.
And so, and here's the thing that I think people will forget, because it ended so weirdly in that the last week that he was there, and they got crushed by Georgia, and there was, you know, he said that they had received death threats, and the school didn't really know about that. And then there was this, I don't know, it's just a very odd ending, and not the ugliest of endings, but fairly ugly and so forth. People forget he was the SEC Coach of the Year,
right,
at Florida,
right,
and they won 2 straight SEC East championships, right, and were playing twice in the SEC championship game, which they lost. Shocking to Alabama. So my, the sort of, I don't know. I think there's people that think about guys who have been places, and for some guys this is true, but like, well, it was just too big. It was too big a job for this coach. He couldn't hang at that level. Well, it's not the case for Jim McElwain.
Right.
The fit was not right, and that eventually bore out. But in any case, I mean, he's been successful, hugely successful initially at Florida. And
he was wildly successful at Colorado State.
I mean, unbelievable.
Well, so much of fit, too, is about who came before you. Colorado State was a downtrodden program that then Sonny Lubick built into a respectable and at times very good program. And Sonny Lubick is a Colorado State legend. I mean, the Colorado State field is named after Sonny Lubick. He was there for almost 20 years. And Sonny Lubick is a very Montana guy. I mean, Sonny Lubick is from Butte, Montana. I mean, his speech at our Football Hall of Fame thing this year was laugh out loud funny. He's just cut from an old school cloth.
Yeah.
And then when he retired, I can't even remember who they hired, but it was 4 years of just disaster, because how do you follow Sonny Lubick first and foremost? But it was also just such an opposite type personality. But then McElwain, so much more like Sonny Lubick, it just in his Montana roots and his, just the kind of the way that people from the rural Rocky Mountain West are. And when you're talking about taking over for, Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer It's not exactly the easiest place to fit in. You know, you're gonna get washed up. It's very much like Bob Stitt at Montana. I mean, I think that a lot of people would agree that Bob Stitt was just a fine guy. He's fine, and he's obviously knows a lot about football, especially offensive football, and he's just not a right fit. And when you then compound the fact that he came after, Bobby Hauck, Mick Delaney, I mean, he's a distinctly different person than those guys. So it's just hard to know what the program needs or to even replicate anything like what they had. And I think that's an interesting point as far as Jeff Choate goes. Jeff Choate is much like the Montana State coaches that came before him, other than Rob Ash.
Right.
He's like Mike Kramer, and he's very much like Cliff Heisel, just in his kind of cowboy values, ride for the brand type guy. And I don't know. It's interesting to just see the way that it all kind of comes down.
Being in the state of Montana, being from Montana, Coulter, it's pretty easy to see when guys make sense at Montana. And when I'm talking about bowl schools, I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about the Frontier Conference, everything.
For sure.
And it's pretty because it has a very, I think, a very distinct value system in one sense, but also sensibility about the people and the place and the culture that you have in the state of Montana. And that is as important as anything to Montanans, is that sensibility, I think. I think we value that significantly as a populace and as a state. And you can have great values, but if they're – and values is not really the right term. I'm not talking about like morality here. I'm just talking about, the work ethic, the independence, the ruggedness, the toughness at times, all those things
but
that
also
sort of get mixed in there.
The trust.
Trust is a great
and the
one.
honesty.
Yep. Yes.
I think that's why there's been so many coaches from Montana that have risen up through the ranks, because I think that when you get in the room with all the guys that we just named, to a man, all these guys that we just rattled off for every circle that we're talking about,
yep.
There's not a dishonest one amongst them.
Totally.
You kind of know exactly what you're getting, and men's men, and very easy to harbor trust in pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, if John Calipari was a coach in the state of Montana, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that he's John Calipari, but that type of guy isn't going to go nearly as far here as he's going to go elsewhere. It's just, it just isn't. And that doesn't mean that he's, I'm not trying to bring up skeletons in the closet or anything. I'm not here to say that he's a bad dude or whatever. You can have your own opinions on it, but just the way that he goes about it, it's not really going to fit. This is not. And,
it's kind of like why Jim McElwain doesn't really fit at Florida.
Right. Totally. I mean,
Jim McElwain got a different SEC job. If Jim McElwain was at Mississippi State,
it's exactly what I was saying. It's so funny now that Dan Mullen's at Florida from Mississippi State.
They should have just done a deadline deal. Get Mac in Mississippi State and have Dan Mullen be in Florida.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because Mississippi State's Starkville's so much more rural.
He needs a place that's off the beaten path. Not off the beaten path, but has.
Well, and there's distinct types of coaches too, right? There's builders, rebuilders. There's next step guys, next level guys, and then there's like the guy like Urban Meyer, where if you got it rolling, you want Urban Meyer because he's going to keep it rolling forever.
Yeah,
and he doesn't get complacent. Nick Saban is very much the same way. Bobby Hauck is a next step and elite type guy, right?
Right.
Mike Kramer is one of the great rebuilders you'll ever see. But he always struggled to be the next step guy or to keep it at the top.
Right.
Mike Kramer can get you from nothing to almost great. And he can even get you to great for a minute. But he never can sustain the greatness. And it's a very interesting parallel. But McElwain is very much the kind of the rebuilder or the upstart type of guy.
Well, it'll be fun to see what happens there at Central Michigan. Central Michigan and Western Michigan, the greatest rivalry in all sports. So we will check that thing out. All right. It's Tutel Nuanez. Quick break. Guess what? The bookies. They're sweating it out over what's happening on the ice. Tell you why next.
Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift this summer or any time of year. If you are traveling, bring a gift that is distinctly Montana and give your loved ones some of the best spices anywhere around. From the Alpine Touch Pick 4 Spice Pack to the All-Purpose Twin Pack to the mouth-watering sunflower shoots to Alpine Touch gift cards. Alpine Touch makes the perfect Montana present. Available at retail locations around the state or online for a limited time. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
The Montana Club invites you to stop in for Club Cocktail Hour. Every day from 3 to 6, sip on $5 martinis. Get $1 off all wine and beer, including cool Montana micros. Enjoy $3 off all mouth-watering appetizers, or swing by Friday for Montini Night and perfectly mixed $5 top shelf martinis from 3 to close. It's time to relax at the Montana Club. Real Montana, real food on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey folks, the best season of the year is upon us. That's right, it's tax return season, and there's one place to have the most fun and make that refund check stretch further than anywhere else, Selway Armory. Selway Armory has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories of anywhere around, and they have the expertise to go with it. It's not everywhere that you can shop local and save money, but Selway Armory will meet or beat any box store price, and your money stays in Montana. It's tax return time, so get more bang for your buck at Selway Armory. Visit online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris, online at kurtzpolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. University of Montana senior Hannah Filzer, the record holder in the hammer throw, scored a heave of 203 feet 1 inch to take ninth at the NCAA West preliminary at Sacramento State Thursday. That throw punches the Missoula Big Sky Products ticket to the national meet in Eugene, Oregon next month. Long hurdler Olivia Ellis, 1,500-meter specialist Marin Lowry, and high jumper Jane Booth each competed for Montana on Thursday, but none earned national qualifying marks.
Other than Filzer, Montana State senior Alex Lewis came closest to advancing to nationals. His 24-foot-1 long jump placed him 19th, his top regional finish in 3 career appearances. Javelin thrower Carly Von Heater from right up the road in Plains, as well as distance runner Kelsey Lesotho from Great Falls, and long hurdler Jake Schneider also each participated for the Bobcats.
Jason Skrimpos, a defensive lineman from the University of Washington, has joined the MSU football program as a grad transfer. The California native redshirted from the University of Washington in 2015 and played for the Huskies defensive line from 2016 through 18. Skrimpos played in 8 games last season, making 1 tackle against BYU. The 6'6", 300-pound defensive tackle was a Max Prep All-Northern California selection as a senior at Milpitas High School in 2014.
Secrets of the past. Take your time, but still you're falling. Can you see through the stained glass?
Hook is in danger of taking a bath. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway and Missoula Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web. You heard of that thing? 1029ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula, SkylineSportsMT.com. Great to be with all of you. Hope you are well. Thanks for being with us. ESPN Radio, YouTube television, Tutel Nuanez, YouTube channel if you're looking for it. The Blues and the Bees. Stanley Cup Final commences Monday. Finally, long layoff to get this thing going. But the Boston Bruins are like, minus 1.5 favorites to win this thing, something like that. But the Blues, Coulter, in January, 300 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. 300 to 1. It doesn't take a lot of bets at that number to put a real hurting on Vegas if they actually come through and they end up catching lightning in a bottle with a rookie goaltender and make a truly remarkable run to be in their first Stanley Cup in 49 years, since 1970. And the books right now are on the hook for mid-six figures if the Blues go ahead and finish the deal. Now, they are the underdog, and Boston has looked phenomenal in these playoffs, sweeping in the Eastern Conference Final to get here. But St. Louis, I mean, what can you say about a Stanley Cup Final? Is there ever really a favorite? I mean, there is, but at the same time, it's hockey, so it's weird that way. It doesn't really give itself to favorites in the way that football and basketball seem to sometimes. So that said, I always root for the team that's going to hurt Vegas the most, just because, come on, give it up from the house. You know what I mean? But it's going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to this thing. Are you going to watch any of these games?
Oh, yeah, I'll watch them. I just got to figure out my allergy situation at your house.
Maybe I got to come to your house.
You're always invited. You just have a lot more obligations than me.
I do. I have 4 obligations specifically. 5 if you include the rabbit.
I think it's...
Are you allergic to the actual animal, or are you just allergic to its food?
I think I'm allergic to both, man. I think I'm allergic to the hay and the rabbit.
But we got rid of the hay.
Well, I mean, I get constricted. Like, I have a full-on asthma attack. I left your house the other night, like, I could not breathe.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I couldn't even talk.
I know.
It was not ideal. Got to figure it out. But no, but about the Stanley Cup, I will watch it, and I actually have watched more of the hockey than you would think. My roommate really likes hockey, yes. And we also kind of have a running inside joke going about, we always put the NBA playoffs on, that's kind of the priority, but we have the secondary channel as hockey, and when we change it to hockey, most of the time you forget to change it back because the thing lasts for 25 minutes before there's a commercial.
That's right.
And even when you do remember to change it back, you change it to the NBA, and it's always on a commercial. So many commercials, it's insane. So then you keep going back. And there have been some epic games. I mean, I watched the double overtime game in Game 7 where the Blues advanced. It's so funny because Robert Chase, our esteemed colleague and the program director of the Trail, he's a huge St. Louis Blues fan. He was telling me stories the other day about going games back in the 70s, and I was texting him during that Game 7, and because it was such a back and forth, and I thought that after 2 overtimes they go to a shootout, and I texted him, I said, who are they going to use for their 5 shooters? And he said, no shootouts in the playoffs, and I was like, I fact checked it, I'm like, oh man. So I texted him.
It could go as long as
I said, what if these guys, because you could tell this was intense.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what if these guys just all die? Is it just like the team that survives wins? Like, what if this thing just goes for 5 overtimes?
Yeah.
And then we get to work the next day, and I was like, Robert, how about that game? And he goes, thank God you were texting me. He goes, after the first overtime, I couldn't handle it anymore. He said, I was freaking out. I had to turn it off. It's like, it's just bad for me late at night to just have that much adrenaline running before I got to go to bed. I got to be into work early. He says I turned it off because I couldn't handle the pressure. And he said, as soon as you texted me, then I was like feverishly running to my computer to see the replay. And I was like, I got it in. I got the last goal and I saw it. It's so funny. But I was thinking about this the other day. The NHL, to me, is so fascinating in terms of the makeup of the league, because to me, it seems as if half the teams are like iconic institutions, and half the teams, you're like, they have a hockey team there?
How'd they do that?
Right? Like the Florida Predators. You're like, really?
Florida Panthers.
Panthers, right. Exactly.
Yes.
Nashville Predators.
There you go.
The Vegas team is hilarious.
Yeah.
And Carolina. Which Carolina is it in? I don't know. How is there hockey in the South? But then you have the teams like the Red Wings and the New York Rangers and all the Canadian teams like the Maple Leafs, and then you have the Bruins. But I would say that the Blues are in that sort of hierarchy, the royalty of the NHL. They're for sure a brand name, very iconic franchise. And when I heard that they had not been to the Stanley Cup final since 1970 until this year, that was very surprising to me. Because, I do really enjoy hockey. I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge of it like I do the NBA. And that's just for so many different reasons. I mean, I read books about the NBA. I've never read a book about hockey. But, I was just thinking about some of the great players that I could just remember off the top of my head. And most of the great players I can remember from the world of hockey played for either, this is funny, these are the four teams that I know a lot of their players. The Blues, the Stars, because a family friend of mine, his dad owned the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota North Stars before they moved to Dallas. The Red Wings and the Avalanche.
Yes.
But I was thinking about some of the great players just off the top of my head. Pierre Turgeon.
Yeah.
Remember Curtis Joseph?
Yeah.
Kojo. Great goalie. Adam Oates. Keith Tkachuk. I mean,
Can you spell Tkachuk?
Oh, man. T-K-A. Man, that's a tough one. Chris Pronger, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brett Hull. I mean, they've had some iconic players. I thought it was funny that they've had like some superstar, like guys that a fringe hockey fan like myself knows, right off the top of my head, that guy was a Blues guy. I just thought it was surprising and sort of crazy that this was the first time since 1970. On the other side, the Boston Bruins, when they showed the highlights from the 1970 Stanley Cup when the Bruins played the Blues, when Bobby Orr scores the game-winning goal, and he just sends it. Yeah. He does a full-on face-down face dive along the ice.
Which there's a bronze statue in front of the arena.
It's classic. It's one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah.
And also the fact that those guys were playing hockey with no helmets. Like the goalie is wearing like a dinner plate as a mask. How? I mean, you talk about tough.
Dude, it's a whole different world, man. This is the roots of hockey. This is why it's such a great game. It's why that's why it is. I mean, football and hockey are they exemplify many Montana qualities, it seems to me.
That's why I think it's so surprising that because like hockey is popular in terms of the adult leagues here. I mean, I know a ton of guys that play in both the Missoula and Bozeman adult leagues. I'm sure they're big in Great Falls and Billings too. And the Bozeman Ice Dogs and the Missoula Maulers have had some pretty good stints. Now Bruins, but have had some pretty good stints of popularity.
Yeah.
And the Great Falls Americans have always had a pretty good following. But I just find it surprising that there's not more of a burgeoning youth hockey scene in Montana.
There's a couple things I think that play into it. Two things. First of all, cost. It is expensive to play hockey.
It is expensive. And then when you factor in the travel in Montana, that makes it even more expensive.
Totally. And it costs just as much here as it does anywhere else. But as we know, Montana doesn't have as much necessarily to spend on that sort of thing as a lot of places.
True.
The other thing is this. Yeah, we're here bordering Canada, and we got all the cold and all that kind of stuff. But the by our standards, the major population centers in the state of Montana, Billings aside, are almost all mountain towns. They're not open, flat, well, what are we going to do here? Let's get out on the ice and go skate. I mean, there's skating that happens and it goes out there, but by and large, there's cross-country skiing, there's downhill skiing, maybe snowmobiling, that kind of thing out in the mountains. Whereas if you were in eastern Montana, I think there is a lot of hockey playing kids, people, families, that kind of stuff going on there. But there's not that many people doing it, so it doesn't translate as much. So the Great Plains basically, it doesn't start. We don't have Great Plains in Montana that as far as it goes because you go all the way out. It's still spectacular topography in the state of Montana, very cool. But it's not mountainous the way it is, obviously, when you start to get into central and western Montana on the east side of the state. But there's also not that many people out there. So I think that's part of it, why it hasn't really gotten here the way it is in Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, etc.
Who are you going for?
Well, one of my dear friends is a big Bruins fan.
Tucker?
No.
Him too. Tucker Sargent, huge Bruins.
He's also a dear friend.
And he also, as our boss says, does not need any more good sports fortune.
Yeah.
Tucker has experienced, 3 World Series and 5 Super Bowls in the last 15 years?
Stupid. And
none of my teams ever won a championship.
A couple Stanley Cups and the Boston Celtics. They're doing it all. So, but also I have a hard time rooting for St. Louis.
You do? How come? They seem like a very neutral franchise.
Yeah, hockey-wise, I don't have as big a problem. It's just the Cubs-Cardinals thing kind of translates for me a little bit. But anything that can, like I said, if we can get the Vegas bookies to have to pay out a little bit, that's a good thing. But I'll probably root for the Bees when I'm watching with Kep, and I'll probably root for St. Louis when I'm watching with Robert.
There you go.
How's that? So I'm pretty
Robert Chase, if you're listening, solidarity. I got you. We got state track and field first day team score updates right after this.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive open range AT that we believe is our quietest, smoothest, and best all-season traction tire ever, or the Reputation, our exclusive high-mileage premium passenger tire. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 open range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
If you haven't tried Florence Coffee's Madagascar Vanilla, you've got to stop by and check it out. Our all-natural Madagascar Vanilla offers vanilla flavor in its purest form without any artificial flavors or preservatives. Stop by any of our 19 Florence Coffee locations and see for yourself just how delicious Madagascar Vanilla really is.
The best flavor under the big sky. Florence Coffee Company.
Board of Missoula is celebrating 30 years in business, and they're hosting a 30-year bash on May 24th. Join them for a game of skate down at the Missoula Skate Park, followed by a local video premiere at Locals Only. To cap off the celebration, Mass FM is playing a free show at the Top Hat that night. Board of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip at 618 South Higgins, and check out Instagram, Facebook, and boardofmissoula.com.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
No songs this time. Not doing it anymore.
Tommy, thought this was going to be. There's a symphony that got written, and it had like a 75-year long silence in it. Have you heard of this thing?
No.
Yeah, so it's like
75-year
long silence. Like it's ongoing. So if you go back like into the history of like music and art and things like that, where they're attempting to say something philosophical, about the state of the world and so forth, and it still happens certainly, but especially with music. Now I don't know, I'm not really much of a classical music historian and so forth, so I don't understand. Like they're talking about how there's like erupting in chaos and fighting and stuff when Beethoven's symphony was played because it was representative of, it was a statement about something. And
have you ever seen Amadeus?
Too dopey to get that. No. No.
You should watch it.
I'll have to take a look.
It's really good.
But anyway, somebody wrote a symphony and, is trying to make a statement about this, state of the world or whatever. And I don't know how long the full symphonies was, but there's a 75-year long empty note or what have you, silent note in there, which makes it, pretty tough to play, I would think.
Indeed it does.
It's Two Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in our show, well, you're going to want to go back and get this one, okay? This one has been great. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, and Spotify. It is there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Rate it, review it, love it, like it, subscribe to it. Please. Thank you. Go ahead, Coulter.
First of all, remember the name Odessa Zentz.
Okay.
Odessa Zentz is the daughter of Jesse Zentz, former sports editor at the Helena Independent Record. He's a former Grizz track star, but Odessa Zentz as a ninth grader.
That's a great name.
It's a great name. As a ninth grader, she just ran a 57.75 in the 400 to win the state championship. She also has the best 800 time in the state by almost 10 seconds. To put this in perspective, Odessa Zentz is only a few seconds off of Carly Smidala right now in her 800 time. Carly Smidala is the University of Montana all-time record holder in the 800 meters and one of the great 800 runners to ever run at UM. And Odessa Zentz is already in that area.
Heading in that direction.
She will be one of the biggest recruits out of the state of Montana because her times and her abilities are just absurd for being a 14-year-old.
Amazing.
Team score updates from the Class AA meet at the end of the first day in Kalispell. The Missoula Sentinel boys in first place, 55 points. Billings West is second with 37. Flathead third with 33. And Bozeman fourth with 28. Missoula Hellgate, they are fifth with 20. On the girls' side of things, Bozeman girls way out in front, 56 points. Billings West second with 32. Helena High third with 25. The two-time reigning state champions Sentinel girls are in fifth, and Hellgate is in eighth. And in Class B, Huntley Project boys out in front, and the Deer Lodge girls out in front.
Boys and girls, have a wonderful weekend. Eastern Conference Finals on ESPN Radio all weekend long. A little baseball for you as well. Happy Memorial Day. Thanks to our servicemen and women. We'll see you Tuesday.
And it'd be on top. That's why I'm moving to Montana. Gonna be a dental floss tycoon. Yes, I am.